If this frequency has reached you now, it was no accident. There is a sensation that only those shifting to a new level of consciousness can recognize, a different kind of inner silence, as if something were reorganizing itself within your energy field without asking for permission. You may not know how to name it, but you feel it. You feel that ordinary days no longer suffice. You feel that certain people, certain environments, and certain noises have started to weigh on you in a way that didn't exist before. And at the same time, you feel that you are seeing things that once went unnoticed, a hidden intention behind a smile, a pattern repeating in your life, a number that insists on appearing on the clock, a thought that arrives seconds before what was about to happen. This has a name. In almost every spiritual tradition of humanity, this type of growing sensitivity is linked to a single point, the inner eye, the center of perception located between the eyebrows, associated with how we perceive that which lies beyond what physical eyes can reach. And when it begins to open, the world around you does not change. You are the one who changes. That is why so much that once seemed normal now seems too small for the new perception that is being born within you. Perhaps you have noticed that your dreams have become more vivid, almost cinematic, as if a part of you were visiting places while your body sleeps. Perhaps you have realized that you know, even before answering the phone, who is on the other side of the line. Perhaps you feel a strange fatigue after being near certain people, as if something had been drained from you without a drop of physical effort. Or perhaps you simply have that quiet certainty, difficult to explain to those who do not feel the same, that there is a layer of reality operating behind the layer that everyone else sees. None of these experiences in isolation proves anything. But when they add up, when they begin to repeat frequently, anyone who has studied the accounts of spiritual awakening throughout history recognizes the pattern immediately. You are not going crazy, you are awakening. And awakening, contrary to what many people think, is not a single event, like turning on a light. It is a process, with phases, with discomforts, with moments of clarity followed by moments of doubt. This is exactly why so many people go through this period feeling alone, because no one prepared you for the side effects of seeing more than others are able to see. Let us understand calmly what is actually happening. The inner eye is associated in the Hindu tradition with the Ajna chakra, the sixth energy center of the body, linked to intuition, mental clarity, and the perception of that which surpasses the five senses. In the ancient Egyptian tradition, symbols like the Eye of Horus carried this same meaning: protection, vision beyond the visible, discernment. In mystical Christian currents, there are accounts of visions, revelations, and a type of spiritual sensitivity described in almost the same terms, only with a different vocabulary: gifts of the spirit, discernment, revelation. Indigenous peoples from different continents also described, each in their own way, this same ability to perceive what is beyond the veil of matter. Cultures that never had contact with each other, separated by oceans and millennia, reached similar descriptions of the same phenomenon. This is not a cultural coincidence, it is humanity as a whole trying to name, each with the tools of their time, the same inner experience. And there is something interesting from a biological standpoint as well. Right in the center of the brain exists a small gland called the pineal, which throughout history has been nicknamed the seat of the soul, including by philosophers like Arthur. It is sensitive to light even while protected inside the skull. It regulates your sleep cycle, influences your dreams, and because of these properties, it has intrigued spiritual traditions of all eras, which began to associate it precisely with the energy point of the inner eye. You don't need to choose between science and spirituality to recognize that there is indeed a point of convergence between the physical body and this more subtle perception that you feel expanding. Throughout history, a good portion of the people most sensitive to this type of perception was not understood by the time in which they lived. Healers, shamans, mystics, elders who read the signs of nature before any technical forecast existed, they were almost always viewed with suspicion by the communities around them, precisely because they saw layers of reality that the majority had not yet developed the sensitivity to perceive. This does not mean that you need to isolate yourself or feel misunderstood forever. It means rather that feeling different during this process is part of the experience. not a sign that something is wrong with you. Each generation has its own awakened ones, and each era reacts to them with the vocabulary it has available. Yesterday they were called mystics. Today they are often called too sensitive or too spirited. The label changes. The experience deep down is the same one that has traversed humanity for millennia. Now pay attention to this, because this is where most people get lost. Not every restlessness is a spiritual awakening, and it is important to have this discernment with kindness toward yourself. If what you feel is accompanied by very intense suffering, severe insomnia or anxiety that won't go away, taking care of your emotional health with professional support is also part of the path, not the opposite of it. Awakening does not mean turning away from self-care. It actually means learning to care for yourself on all layers, body, mind, and spirit together, with no hierarchy between them. That said, there is a real difference between common anxiety and this expansion of perception that we are describing here. Anxiety contracts you, closes you off, and makes you anticipate bad scenarios about the future. Awakening, even when uncomfortable at first, opens you up. It comes accompanied by a sense of purpose, a renewed desire to understand the world, a sharper perception of the people around you, and above all, a growing discomfort with everything you previously accepted without question. Shallow relationships, toxic environments, routines void of meaning. If this is what you are feeling, then yes, your frequency is shifting, and your inner eye is in fact in the process of activation. It was precisely because of following stories like yours closely, year after year, that I wrote a resource that gathers everything I wish I had had in hand when my own process began. It is called God's Handbook for Family Guardians, and it was born as a digital book precisely because an awakening like yours does not only affect you, it affects the way you relate to those closest to you, to your home, to your family. This digital book is not a generic manual of spirituality. It was designed specifically for this moment you are living now, the moment when your perception is opening faster than your understanding can keep up. Within this digital book, you will find practical guidance to navigate this phase without getting lost in it. How to differentiate true intuition from anxious thinking, how to protect your energy after spending time with people who drain you, how to explain to those you love what is happening to you without seeming distant, and how to transform this new sensitivity into spiritual protection for your entire family, not just yourself. Because one of the most beautiful effects of a true spiritual awakening is that it is never just individual. When one person in a house begins to see further, they naturally become a kind of silent guardian for those around them. The link to download the digital book is pinned right there at the top of the comments. If what you just read resonates with you, leave a word below. It can simply be, "I felt this," because I want to know how many people are experiencing this same turning point with me right now. Returning to the activation process, one of the questions I receive most often concerns the physical signs that usually accompany this phase. It is common to feel a slight pressure between the eyebrows in moments of deep silence or meditation. It is common for dreams to become more symbolic, filled with images that seem to carry messages, even if you cannot yet decipher them completely. It is common to notice synchronicities, those coincidences that happen too often to just be coincidences. Thinking of someone and having them reach out at that exact moment, opening a book to the very page that holds the answer you needed, crossing paths with the same number at different times and places throughout the day. Other signs also tend to appear in this phase, and it is worth recognizing them without judgment. A sudden desire to remain in silence more often, to reduce the noise around you, to distance yourself a little from news and content you once consumed without a second thought. A greater sensitivity to environments with crowds, bright lights or loud sounds, as if your nervous system were processing information at a different intensity than it did before. An increasing attraction to topics like life purpose, spirituality, and the whys behind events, even if these were never of interest to you. And perhaps the most common sign of all, the feeling of seeing through people, perceiving intentions, energies, and truths that they themselves may not have even verbalized yet. These signs, when they appear together and frequently, indicate that your perception is recalibrating. And here is something few people explain correctly. This process has phases, and each phase requires a different kind of care. The first phase is usually one of discomfort and estrangement. You begin to feel displaced in environments that were once familiar. Conversations that previously seemed interesting now sound hollow. Relationships that functioned on a certain level of superficiality begin to bother you because you can no longer pretend as much as you used to. Many people at this stage think there is something wrong with them, that they are becoming distant or even strange in the eyes of others. In truth, what is happening is that your internal yardstick has changed size, and things that once fit within it no longer do. It is precisely in this initial phase that relationships with family tend to become more delicate. The people closest to you, who know the previous version of who you were, often do not understand this shift and may interpret your new silence, your new selectivity, as distance, bad humor, or exaggeration. This hurts especially when it comes from those we love. But it is important to understand that it is not a rejection of the family. It is the natural process of recalibration that any true spiritual awakening provokes. With time and with the right tools, this same sensitivity that currently seems to pull you away can become exactly what will unite and protect your home, because those who see further are also the first to notice when something is wrong, even before it becomes a greater problem. The second phase is one of searching. You begin to look for answers, to take an interest in subjects that perhaps had never caught your attention before: spirituality, energy, life purpose, the deeper whys of existence. It is a phase of hunger for knowledge, of wanting to understand what you are feeling with a vocabulary that finally makes sense. It is likely that you are in this phase now, since you have made it this far, listening to this, seeking to understand what you are experiencing. The third phase is that of integration, and it is the most delicate of all, because it is where expanded perception must learn to coexist with practical life. Work, family, bills, the responsibilities of day-to-day life. Many people go through a spiritual awakening only to become frustrated later, thinking life should get easier, lighter, almost magical. But it is not quite like that. What changes are not the circumstances around you. What changes is your capacity to navigate them with more clarity, more discernment, and less emotional reactivity. It is in this phase that your new perception ceases to be just an interesting sensation and becomes, in fact, a tool of protection for you and for those you love. And it is precisely about this third phase, that of integration, that I want to speak a little more regarding the content of the digital book I have prepared. Because the hardest part of awakening is never the feeling itself. The difficult part is knowing what to do with what you are feeling, especially when the people around you have not yet gone through the same process and do not fully understand what you are going through. God's Handbook for Family Guardians was written with this exact turning point in mind. The moment when you no longer have any doubts that something has changed within you, but you still do not know how to transform this change into something practical, something that truly protects and strengthens your life and the lives of the people you love. It gathers guidance on spiritual discernment, on how to recognize influences that try to take advantage of moments of heightened energetic sensitivity, and on simple practices of spiritual protection for the home, designed for those who, like you, are becoming a reference of sharper perception for their own family. This is not a digital book for those who are merely curious about spirituality. It was written for those who already feel, in their own skin, that they have crossed a point of no return, for those who can no longer pretend they do not perceive what they perceive. If you have made it this far listening to this, this is most likely your case, and the link to download the digital book remains pinned to the top of the comments, available to anyone who wishes to delve deeper into what we are discussing here today. It is also worth mentioning that this sensitivity does not appear only in adults. Many parents who go through this spiritual awakening begin to perceive, with greater clarity, similar signs in their own children. Children who are afraid of things they claim to feel, without being able to explain, who report uncommonly detailed dreams, or who seem to perceive the emotional climate of a house even before a word is spoken. It is not about labeling the child or fueling fears. It is about observing with attention, without exaggeration, and understanding that the sensitivity unfolding in you may also exist at a different intensity in those you love most. Taking care of your own perception, in this sense, is also a way of better taking care of those growing up within your home. Now let us talk about something that many people feel but few verbalize: the fear of overreacting, of giving too much importance to sensations that might just be imagination. This fear is normal, and it usually appears precisely because we are in a society that does not have much room to validate this type of experience. But think with me, if thousands of years of different spiritual traditions without contact with each other have described experiences similar to yours, perhaps the problem is not that you are overreacting. Perhaps the problem is that we live in a time when we have learned to distrust our own perception more than to rely on it. This does not mean believing blindly in everything you feel, without any filter. Discernment is also part of the awakening. It means, rather, to stop automatically discarding what you feel just because there is no immediate and comfortable explanation for it. There is a space between naive superstition and automatic skepticism, and it is exactly in that space that true spiritual maturity dwells, observing, feeling, testing, comparing over time, and building your own internal compass, one that is increasingly reliable. A simple practice I often recommend for those in this activation phase is to write down dreams as soon as you wake up, even before picking up your phone. Just one sentence helps. The mood of the dream, a striking image, a sensation that remained. Over time, patterns begin to emerge, and you start to recognize when a dream is just processing the day and when it carries something more symbolic, more important. Another practice is to set aside a few minutes of true silence. No screens, no sound, just breathing, paying attention to what arises in the mind when it stops being bombarded with stimuli all the time. It is impressive how intuition becomes clearer when external noise decreases. A third practice that helps a lot at this stage is a simple grounding exercise, ideal for moments when you feel your mind is racing or your energy is scattered. Sit with your feet flat on the floor, close your eyes, and breathe deeply 3 times, feeling the air entering and leaving slowly. Then imagine a root growing from the base of your spine, descending through the floor, passing through the ground, until it connects deeply with the earth. Stay for a few minutes just breathing into this image, feeling the body heavier, more present, more stable. This type of exercise is not about turning off the perception that is unfolding within you. It is about giving it a solid foundation to sustain itself, because an active inner eye without a well-grounded body tends to generate dispersion, fatigue, and even a sensation of being out of body too often. Grounding is what allows you to continue functioning well in practical life, while this subtler perception continues to expand in parallel. And there is also the matter of energetic protection, which is one of the central themes of the digital book I mentioned. As our sensitivity increases, so does our permeability. We begin to absorb more easily the emotional climate of the environments and people around us. This explains why at times you leave a place completely exhausted without having made any physical effort, or why certain conversations leave you with a heaviness that takes hours to pass. Learning to protect yourself energetically is not about closing yourself off to the world. It is about learning to filter, to exercise discernment regarding what is yours and what you're only absorbing, and to recompose yourself after being in heavier environments. Within God's Handbook for Family Guardians, this is one of the most detailed points. How to recognize when your energy is being drained, how to strengthen yourself before entering difficult environments, and how to create, within your own home, a space that truly serves as a refuge for you and your family, in a world that rarely teaches this. It is material designed to be practical, not just contemplative. You will not only better understand what you are feeling, but you will also walk away with real tools to deal with it in your day-to-day life. If this theme is resonating with you, the link to download the digital book is pinned at the top of the comments. And if you like, leave a comment telling me which of these phases you feel you are in right now, whether it is the phase of strangeness, of searching, or of integration. I read the comments, and it is always beautiful to see how many different people are going through similar versions of this same journey, at the same time, even while living in completely different places. Let's close with something important. If you reach this point in the video, listening to every part with attention, that already says something about you. Most people would not have stopped to pay attention to this type of content for so long, but you did. You felt you needed to understand. And this desire to understand, this silent hunger for deeper answers, is, in itself, a sign that your perception is already different from what it was a few months or a few years ago. The spiritual awakening of the inner eye is not about becoming someone special above others. It is about returning to see clearly what has always been there, only covered by the excess noise of daily life. It is about reconnecting the body, mind, and spirit, which the rush of modern life insists on separating. And it is also about learning to use this clarity to protect those you love, because awakening alone, with no purpose other than yourself, is only half the path. And if at any moment on this journey you feel the urge to turn back, to pretend you didn't see, that you didn't feel, that you didn't perceive, know that this is also normal. No one asked to be born with this sensitivity in a world that doesn't always know what to do with it. But those who have already tasted the clarity of seeing more clearly can hardly in truth return to living on the autopilot of before. And there is nothing wrong with that. On the contrary, it is the beginning of a life lived with more presence, more truth, and more connection to what really matters. If this frequency has reached you today, perhaps it is the moment to take the next step with more intention, not just feeling that something is changing, but truly understanding what to do with that change. God's handbook for family guardians was written to accompany exactly this transition, with simple language, practical guidance, and a perspective that unites spirituality and real care for the family. The link is pinned at the top of the comments for anyone who wishes to delve deeper. And if you felt at any point in this video that shiver of recognition, that feeling of "this is what I need," trust it. This sensation is also part of what we are calling intuition here, the inner eye, a frequency adjusting itself. Thank you for having made it this far with an open mind and heart. May this new perception continue to expand, calmly, with discernment and with purpose within you.